All right. Hi, Brayden, Dasan, and Martin. Okay, so this video is specifically for you, and we're going to be doing these specific for you videos for the next little while we're working on reading assignments, okay? So, all right. Now, I will say there are one or two of you who needs to do a little bit better at turning in your e-learning work. Make sure that you get that stuff done so that way you're still going to pass, you're going to get your credit, okay? So make sure we're doing what we need to do and that we are ready to go for any Google Forms or quizzes or anything like that that we're going to be doing. So today, what you guys are going to be looking at is the Industrial Revolution. And in Google Classroom, where you found this video, is a document that says, you know, Introduction to Industrial Revolution or Industrial Revolution Beginning and the American Revolution. Industrial Revolution. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read the article to you, and then you guys are going to select the correct answers on your paper and turn in the correct answers or what you've selected, okay? So if you go to Google Classroom, you'll see an assignment for today. Okay, so this is what it is. So it's the e-learning Tuesday, March 24th, and you'll have this assignment down here. And when you pull up that assignment, it will look like this, okay? And down here at the very, very bottom, you'll see some questions. And you'll notice that I've pulled out some of the answers, okay? Some of the options. So what we're going to do really quickly is I'm going to read this to you. So follow along, and then once I'm done reading, you'll be able to answer the questions and turn those questions in. Okay. All right, so we're going to start with the beginnings in Britain. All right, the beginnings in Britain. The Industrial Revolution is one of the most important events in human history. It changed people's lives in every part of the world, affected the fortunes of nations, and dramatically altered the planet itself. This revolution began in England in the mid-1700s because of the unique set of circumstances which existed in that country. It was spurred by several inventions which made it possible to produce cloth cheaply. The revolution was fed by the power of Great Britain, which was one of the dominant powers in the world and had huge markets in its colonies. In addition, Britain had ample supplies of coal and iron, but little usable farmland. Right now we are on homegrown, and homemade. Before the Industrial Revolution, most families in Great Britain lived on farms, which were usually owned by large landowners. People made their own clothes and grew their own food. Women spun thread on a simple spinning wheel and then made homespun clothes from wool gotten by shearing their own sheep. It was a long and exhausting process. Most people had few clothes other than what they were actually wearing. Washing clothes was rarely done because the cloth deteriorated badly, both from being washed and from being allowed to get so sweaty, oily, and filthy in daily wear. People grew what they ate or traded food for other necessities. Money was scarce, and there were few opportunities to earn it. Okay, now we're here. The cottage industry. The Industrial Revolution began as a revolutionary way of making clothes. Businessmen in England in the mid-1700s began to buy wool and other materials and source it out to women who worked in their homes to spin the thread, make cloth, and then sew clothes. Because the work was done at home, it became known as a cottage industry. Family members helped. This provided extra money for the family, and businessmen did not need to have a factory. This system gradually changed as better machines for making cloth were developed, which created the textile industry and brought about the Industrial Revolution. All right, the Industrial Revolution begins. Continued. So now we are on better spinning machines. The spinning wheel had existed for centuries. It was a simple foot-powered instrument which produced one thread at a time. Many efforts were made to improve this tool, but most were unsuccessful. The invention of the flying shuttle in 1733 by a mechanic named John Kay allowed weavers to create much more cloth than they had been able to before. Then, in the late 1760s, James Hargreaves invented the spinning jenny, which could spin 8 threads at a time instead of just one. Richard Arkwright then invented a spinning frame, which made even more threads, but was too large to keep in a home. He built a factory to house the horse-powered machine and hired people to work in the factory. Horse-powered machine means that instead of using steam engine or gas, that all the machines were done by horses walking around in a circle attached to a wheel that was attached to everything else. In 1785, Edmund Cartwright invented a water-powered loom, which greatly increased the speed of weaving. It, too, required a factory. The most significant invention of this period was the steam engine, invented by Thomas Newcomen in 1712 and substantially improved by James Watt in the late 1770s. This engine did not require running water or horses to provide energy. Steam engines could be built and installed in factories almost anywhere. The development of steam engines led to major improvements in making machinery, tools, which in turn led to those tools being used to create new and better versions of engines and many other machines. The two great resources of the industrial age were coal and iron. Coal was essential in providing the power to make a steam engine work. Massive amounts of coal were used to power these engines, and England had many available coal mines. Coal also became vital to the production of iron. Heating coal in an airtight oven produces coke, and in 1713, an English iron maker used coke to make iron instead of using hardwood from England's nearly depleted forests, meaning they had cut down most of their forests. Further inventions made it easier to make iron as well as to make it stronger, simpler to work with, and easier to roll into the needed shapes. On to America. After beginning in England, the Industrial Revolution spread to France, Belgium, Germany, and other European countries. The United States, having newly gained its independence from England, became fertile ground for the spread of industrialization. Many of the northern states in the U.S. began to experience a spurt in the development of factories. From 1783 until 1860, factories spread throughout the country. The Civil War and years that followed brought the United States to a position of world power based on industrial might. Now, if I were you, I would pause the video right here, open your document, and answer these 10 questions. When you're done answering these 10 questions, unpause the video, and we're going to be reading about America's Industrial Revolution. Remember, you're answering the questions in your own notability document. Okay, so now we're on to part 2, America's Industrial Revolution. So we're going to start with stolen knowledge. Dun, dun, dun. All right, stolen knowledge. It was illegal to reveal or distribute information about England's textile machinery, methods, or setup to other nations and even to England's own colonies. The colonies were expected to supply raw material, but the manufacturing was to be done in England. The penalties for violating these state secrets were severe. So you could be considered a traitor if you took any of this information and started your own textile firm in another country. All right, so now we're going to be here. Samuel Slater was a 21-year-old former apprentice to a textile manufacturer who wanted to go to the newly independent United States to start his own textile business. He knew that there were businessmen in America who were interested in building textile factories. Because he could not chance being caught with written notes or diagrams, Slater memorized the internal machinery of spinning and weaving machines. He then disguised himself as a farmer and sailed to America in September 1789. He had no money, but he carried a fortune in his memory. Slater soon found a partner, Moses Brown, who had the necessary money, and together they opened the first American textile mill in Rhode Island. Okay, so we're going to stop there for a second. This means that he risked going to jail and being considered a traitor just to start his business in the United States. All right, so now we're going to be here, 2 American viewpoints. The new American nation had 2 competing self-images, or ways we see ourselves. One view, which was expressed by Thomas Jefferson, perceived or saw the United States as an agricultural nation populated primarily by farmers who owned and farmed small parcels of land. This ideal would persist in American minds until the late 20th century, long after the nation had few farm families left on the land. Jefferson did not want the United States to become a nation of factories because he had personally witnessed the suffering of factory workers in England. All right, so that was the first one. So the first one is Thomas Jefferson, and he thought everybody should be farmers. All right, the second image was envisioned by Alexander Hamilton, a friend of U.S. President George Washington and the new Secretary of the Treasury. Hamilton wanted the country to industrialize rapidly. Hamilton wants the opposite. He wants the machines. He wanted the United States to build factories because it would encourage immigration to the country, increase the value of farm products since there would be more people to buy the products, and greatly strengthen the nation as a world power able to compete with other nations. Eventually, Hamilton's policies would succeed. All right, last page. Inventions lead the way. Inventors are more likely to spend time creating and testing new ideas if they are going to make money for their efforts. The new government of the United States passed a patent law in 1790, which ensured inventors legal control over their inventions and the sale of those inventions for 17 years. The first 10 years saw fewer than 300 patents, or the rights to an invention, meaning you own the invention, issued to inventors. However, after 1800, the number rose dramatically. Unfortunately, the patent law did not always protect an inventor. In 1793, Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin, which separated the seeds from cotton 50 times faster than could be done by hand. Since the machine was easy to duplicate or copy, many planters simply made their own cotton gins. As a result, Whitney and his partner were unable to protect his invention. The cotton gin led to a far greater supply of cotton for the new textile factories in the North. It also helped keep slavery as an institution in the South because slaves were needed to grow and harvest the cotton. All right, I'm going to stop right there. As we know, because we still grow cotton in the South today, you don't need slaves. The slave owners just didn't want to have to pay workers. They thought it was cheaper to have slaves. But we know that that is something that was wrong of them to do. Nobody should be a slave. All right, working girls. Textile factory owners in Massachusetts found that they could hire farm girls to work in their factories for about $3 a week, depending on their experience and effort. Although the wages were low, it was more than the girls could make as seamstresses or servants who made less than $1 a week. As a result, thousands of single girls worked in the mills for a few years until they married. They lived in company-owned boarding houses where they paid about 1/3 of their earnings for rent and food. All right, so 1/3 of their earnings each week. If they earn $3 a week, they pay 1/3. They have to pay $1 every week for their rent and food. The girls followed strict rules both at the factories and at the boarding houses, but many young women preferred this life to the drudgery of the farm. Men who worked in the factories were paid twice as much as the girls, but were often hard for manufacturers to keep. Most young American men preferred to take a chance on farming with the hope of owning land and becoming independent. Businessmen encouraged immigration because many of the people arriving from other countries were grateful for the chance to get any kind of job. Life was better for American factory workers than it was for the struggling and often unemployed people in Europe. And that is the end. We're going to see what some of the challenges were of, the Industrial Revolution in a couple of days. But for now, you should have these 10 questions finished, because because I had you pause it and answer them. Now what you need to do is answer these 10 questions, okay? Once you've answered these 10 questions, I would like for you to turn in the whole document to Google Classroom, and that's it for today, okay? So I know that this was kind of a long video, but I wanted to make sure that you guys had access to the entire reading so you can listen to it and you can answer the questions on your own, okay? Let me know if you have any questions or issues, and I will talk to you guys later, okay? Make sure you turn this in. All right, I will see you guys later. Bye.